In our world, Homo sapiens became the dominant species on Earth due to intelligence, tool use, social cooperation, and environmental adaptability. But what if things had evolved differently? What if cats, not humans, had become Earth's ruling species? Let's imagine a scientifically plausible alternate history where cats evolved advanced cognition and societal complexity millions of years ago, replacing humans as the planet's apex civilization. How would the world look today? What would change politically, environmentally, and culturally? This is not a fantasy world. This is a logical extrapolation of what Earth might be like if cats ruled. 1. The evolutionary shift. In this timeline, around 50 million years ago, a subspecies of feliform mammals developed a larger neocortex, better memory formation, and advanced tactile communication skills. These creatures, early cat-like predators, became the evolutionary predecessors of Felis sapiens, or intelligent cats. Unlike humans who developed hands and vocal cords for manipulation and speech, cats retained their unique evolution: stealth, reflexes, night vision, and silence. But over time, they developed larger brains relative to body size, advanced social structures based on hierarchy and proximity, a highly specialized sensory language system, soundless, subtle, and vibrational. They didn't talk. They didn't need tools. They mastered observation, energy conservation, and influence. 2. Global architecture would be vertical, warm, and quiet. In a feline-dominated world, cities wouldn't sprawl across landscapes. They would climb. Urban environments would resemble vast climbing jungles, built upward rather than outward. Buildings would spiral into the sky with layered ledges for perching and sunbathing, suspended bridges and hammock pathways, thermal stones and heat-capturing surfaces at every level, smooth, padded surfaces to reduce noise and movement stress. There would be no loud vehicles.
No concrete jaiguas.
Cats evolved to avoid chaos, so the world they shaped would be soft, warm, and elevated. Most cities would be constructed in sunlit, geologically warm zones, volcanic ridges, geothermal basins, or along equatorial zones optimized for napping and energy efficiency. Night would be sacred. Most activity would pause after sunset, respecting the feline rhythm of twilight vigilance and deep darkness. 3. Human technology would never exist, not as we know it. In this world, tool use would not define civilization. Cats, lacking opposable thumbs, would rely on
Bioengineering via selective evolution.
Sound, scent, and vibration interfaces, pause-sensitive control systems rather than complex machinery, and eventually neurological interface technology, allowing them to operate devices mentally through sensory interaction. Instead of computers, they would have sensory data pools, silent chambers filled with pulsing light, scent trails, and responsive pads where memory and decisions are accessed collectively. They wouldn't invent weapons or vehicles. War, as we understand it, would be considered vulgar. Instead, cats would resolve conflict through ritualized dominance displays, patience, and nonverbal negotiation. Quiet endurance would be the highest virtue. The loudest creature would be seen as unstable or worse, dangerous. 4. Culture would prioritize stillness, territory, and ritual. In a feline-run society, silence equals respect, stillness equals wisdom, territory equals identity. Leadership wouldn't be democratic or authoritarian. It would emerge through behavior. The leader is not the strongest, but the one who can wait the longest, move the least, and endure the most stillness without breaking focus. Art would focus on pattern, light, and shadow, things cats naturally perceive with great nuance. Music, as we know it, may never evolve. Instead, ambient vibrations and thermal rhythms would serve as entertainment and communication. Religion, possibly a night-based philosophy, centered around lunar phases, dreams, instinct, and collective presence. Spirituality would focus on internal balance, environmental harmony, and memory carried through scent and sensation. Their version of books? Scent libraries, vaults of organic material coated with memory and emotion, activated by paw pressure or whisker contact. 5. Ecosystems would be preserved, not exploited. Cats would never strip mine the earth. They wouldn't clear forests or dam rivers. Instead, they would subtly modify the world to favor temperature control, climbing zones, and hunting microclimates. The result? A planet still lush with life, dominated by elevated structures and gentle ecological engineering. Forests wouldn't be felled. They'd be cultivated into vertical sanctuaries, a global jungle of curated life. Closing. In a world ruled by cats, we wouldn't see cities of steel, armies, corporations, or constant noise. Instead, the planet would move in slow rhythms, ruled by instinct, silence, balance, and warmth. Earth would still be alive, but it would purr, not roar. If cats had evolved into the planet's dominant intelligent species, their civilization would have looked nothing like our own. Their biology, instincts, and behavior would have shaped a society that prioritizes sensory awareness, silence, hierarchy, and thermal comfort, all built around the evolutionary needs of a feline world. In Part 1, we saw how cats may have become Earth's apex species. Now, let's explore what their society and daily life would realistically be like. 1. Social structure. Clans, not crowds. Feline society would be built around territorial clans, small, semi-autonomous units ranging from 10 to 30 individuals. These groups would resemble pride-like communities, maintaining strong spatial boundaries and internal roles based on grooming, observation, and spatial dominance. Unlike human cities, which thrive on high density and noise, cat civilizations would avoid overpopulation. Their instincts favor space, elevation, and calm. Overcrowding would be seen as a threat to survival, not a sign of prosperity. Clans would communicate via scent codes, body language, and nonverbal posturing, forming a stable but highly formalized society. Social violations, like entering another cat's resting zone uninvited, would be met with freezing stares or total exclusion, not physical violence. The cornerstone of feline civilization would be balance between members, environments, and routines. 2. Government rule by stillness. There would be no elections, no speeches, no ruling families. Instead, leadership would emerge through what historians might later call the stillness hierarchy. Cats, by nature, resolve tension through observation and patience. Dominance isn't proven through action, but restraint. Therefore, every clan would choose its path not through voting or argument, but through still circles, ceremonial gatherings in which individuals remain motionless and silent for hours. The cat who breaks stillness first, by twitching, turning, or blinking, is ruled out. The last to remain unmoving becomes the pathfinder, the clan's temporary decision-maker. This system favors calmness, spatial awareness, and confidence, core feline traits. Leadership would never be permanent. Every major decision would require a new still circle. There would be no courts or police. Social order would be maintained through ritual respect, grooming hierarchies, and the collective understanding that disruption brings discomfort, the ultimate feline offense. 3. Education, learning by watching. Kittens, born with innate hunting instincts, would be trained not through lectures but by imitation and repetition. Education would center around motion mimicking, shadow testing, timing movement between bursts of light, sound pulse reading, decoding frequencies for communication, balance and thermal mapping, navigating environments based on surface warmth. There would be no written language. Memory and knowledge would pass through motion-coded rituals, scent archives, and vibration-based storytelling, like soft drumless dances performed in groups, each step representing part of a myth or history. History would be felt, not told. 4. Technology, sensory interfaces, not tools. Without opposable thumbs, cats would not invent traditional tools. Instead, their tech evolution would focus on interface design, manipulating their environment through paw-sensitive panels, tail-activated sensors, whisker contact triggers, scent-coded systems that respond to proximity and identity. Later in their civilization, cats would likely develop neuroresponsive architecture, homes and objects that respond to emotional or sensory states. For example, a perch that warms when a cat is relaxed, or a chamber that darkens when anxiety is detected. AI in a feline world would be more like a nervous system, not a personality, but a fabric that adapts silently and constantly to its users' rhythms. 5. Daily life, quiet cycles and sacred routine. A typical day in a feline-run world would be structured by multiple rest phases, 4 to 6 naps spaced evenly over the day, hunting play, even synthetic, to satisfy instinct, grooming rituals for bonding, sun perch time for healing and reflection. Noise would be strictly regulated. Cities would be designed with acoustic absorption zones, and most surfaces would muffle sound. Water would flow in streams but never cascade loudly. Art would be visual and scent-based, trees with sculpted shadows, fur-groomed moss gardens, or glowing trails of pheromone dust left on walkways at night. Felines do not create to impress. They create to soothe. So architecture, music, and public space would all serve a single purpose: deep relaxation and sensory harmony. 6. Punishment, law, and disobedience. Cats would not punish with imprisonment. Instead, the most severe form of rejection would be ignoring. A disruptive individual would be socially disappeared, unacknowledged, unspoken to, and avoided. Since feline survival depends on shared warmth and scent identity, this kind of exile would be psychologically devastating. There would be no prisons but quiet zones, spaces where cats voluntarily go to correct their rhythm and rebalance their presence before rejoining the clan. Disobedience wouldn't be seen as criminal. It would be seen as misalignment, a failure of personal stillness. Correction wouldn't require force, just distance, silence, and time. Conclusion: in a cat-ruled world, life would not be fast, loud, or chaotic. It would be slow, deliberate, and deeply sensory. Government would be stillness. Power would be patience. Order would be ritual. And most importantly, the purpose of life wouldn't be progress. It would be peace. In a feline-dominated Earth, the technological and environmental landscape would have evolved not around domination and resource extraction, but around sensory harmony, thermal precision, and silent mobility. With no human desire for conquest or rapid industrialization, the Earth would be shaped by a civilization that prioritizes stillness, vertical space, warmth, and ecological equilibrium. The result would be a planet both advanced and tranquil, engineered for comfort, not control. This part explores how technology, energy, transportation, and environmental policy would function under feline rule. 1. Energy, heat over power. In our human world, energy production prioritizes quantity and efficiency. But in a feline-led world, energy would be designed to support environmental warmth and sensory consistency, not machinery. The dominant forms of energy would be geothermal warmth from beneath the earth, passive solar absorption using dark fur-mimicking surfaces, bioheat exchange, technologies that redirect body heat into insulated communal structures. Instead of central heating or electricity grids, energy would circulate through thermal veins, living walls, and soft stone pillars that store and slowly release warmth over time. There would be no combustion. Fire would be taboo. Smoke, with its stench and chaos, would be considered dangerous and offensive. Every power structure would prioritize consistent, breathable warmth, not voltage or output. 2. Technology, silent interfaces, and instinctive design. Without hands or speech, felines would not develop mechanical tools or complex machinery. Instead, their technologies would emerge from a long coevolution with nature and selective environmental manipulation. Their innovations would include pore-responsive surfaces, floors and platforms that heat, shift, or light up based on tread pressure, whisker-sensitive panels, using tactile resonance to trigger environmental changes, scent-based locks and navigation, paths marked with pheromonal trails that act as personal identification, emotion-responsive chambers, rooms that change color, sound, or temperature based on the feline's mood or intention. Artificial intelligence would be ambient, not personified. There would be no robots, only adaptive infrastructure. A ledge might tilt or warm if you're distressed. A hallway might glow softer if you return from a long hunt. All systems would respond to presence, not commands. 3. Architecture, vertical sanctuaries. As established in earlier parts, feline architecture would rise, not sprawl. Cities would resemble hanging jungles or vertical sanctuaries, using natural cliff faces, elevated forests, artificial tree spires made from grown organic scaffolds. Materials would be soft but durable. Woven plant fiber, polished volcanic stone, and thick root systems engineered into living walls. Walkways would curve. Surfaces would cushion. Every structure would serve 3 functions: quiet passage, thermal efficiency, view control, always allowing a hidden vantage point from which to observe safely. Windows would not face outward but downward. Privacy would be sacred. Visibility would be earned. 4. Transportation, silent flow. Movement in a feline world would be frictionless and noise-free. There would be no cars, no wheels, no combustion. Instead, transport would be glide paths, smooth platforms that move silently on magnetic currents or thermal lifts, climbing corridors, vertical shafts with soft footholds and heat-mapped walls, cushioned spiral tunnels through trees, mountains, or soft-structured towers, and eventually, quantum drift tunnels, vibration-sealed lanes that allow individual cats to travel between zones using atmospheric pressure gradients. Speed would be less important than comfort and precision. Movement would follow the path of least disturbance, minimizing noise and sensory overload. 5. Environmental management, planet as a purring machine. Feline civilization would never allow environmental collapse. The ecosystem would be seen not as a resource but as an extension of the body, something that must be kept in balance. Deforestation would be unthinkable. Instead, cats would engineer forests to suit their needs. Trees grown with spiraling trunks for natural ramps. Elevated nests suspended between canopies. Symbiotic plants bred to emit calming scents or regulate temperature. Waste management would rely on bioabsorption. Organic materials would be broken down by fungal colonies that produce warmth as a byproduct. Nothing would be thrown away, only redirected. The oceans would remain untouched. Cats' natural aversion to water would prevent exploitation, preserving aquatic ecosystems in their purest form. Even prey animals, birds, mice, insects would be preserved and integrated into ritual cycles of pursuit and release, maintaining both ecological diversity and feline instinctual balance. 6. Global impact. Earth, the soft planet. From space, feline Earth would look green, gold, and softly glowing. There would be no satellite clutter, no industrial zones, no dark oceanic oil slicks. Cities would blend into forests. Roads would be invisible. Lights would be warm and low, not blinding, but soothing pulses like a heartbeat. Instead of pushing against nature, cat society would have merged with it, using patience over speed, instinct over invention, and comfort over conquest. Technology would exist, but never overwhelm. Civilization would thrive, but never expand beyond what could be maintained silently. The planet would not shout, it would purr. In the world shaped by Felis sapiens, the dominant cat species, culture would evolve not from language, war, or empire, but from instinctual rhythm, emotional resonance, and ritualized silence. Where human civilization built temples for gods, wrote books of laws, and invented drama and music, feline civilization would center around pattern, presence, and balance. This final part explores what feline culture, spirituality, belief, and art would look like in a world where cats, not humans, ruled the earth. 1. The core of feline culture. Stillness is sacred. To cats, stillness is not a lack of motion. It is the highest expression of awareness. Stillness shows control, composure, and clarity. Movement is reserved for purpose, hunting, climbing, grooming, exploring, but it is always calculated. Thus, in their civilization, rituals begin with extended periods of silence. Ceremonies are performed without words, often in synchronized perches or slow-motion walking loops. Teaching happens through mirrored posture and gaze. Meditation is not learned, it is lived moment by moment. No feline gathering would be loud. Even joy is quiet. Celebration happens in communal resting, shared warmth, or scent exchange. The loudest noise in a feline world would likely be a collective purr. 2. Religion, the night cycle, and the dream body. Feline spirituality would not involve gods in the human sense. There would be no divine kings, no scriptures, and no worship. Instead, cats would build belief around the moon cycle and the dream body, a concept that blends instinct, ancestral memory, and the invisible threads of the universe. Their beliefs might include the first breath, a mythic ancestor cat who exhaled the world into motion and whose breath still moves the winds. The night of vanishing, a sacred time each lunar month when all movement ceases during the new moon. No cat moves or eats, they simply exist. Dream paths, an idea that during sleep, a cat's spirit walks in parallel worlds, learning, remembering, and returning with clarity. Temples would be built underground or in dense foliage, warm, shaded, and quiet. They'd feature spiraled passageways, reflective stone, and large, elevated platforms for dreaming. Priests would be the most silent, not the most powerful. They would not preach but simply be present, a living example of the balance all cats strive to embody. 3. Art and expression. Scent, pattern, and light. With no hands, no paintbrushes, and no written language, feline art would evolve through sensory media. Scent sculptures, arrangements of pheromones and natural materials layered to evoke mood or memory. Shadow gardens, open-air spaces designed to cast specific light patterns during certain hours. Balanced stones, gravity-defying stacked objects that represent emotion through weight and tension. Slow dance rituals, subtle, synchronized motion routines that tell stories over hours, not minutes. Art would be experienced, not observed. A viewer wouldn't just look at a sculpture. They would feel its temperature, walk around its scent arcs, listen for vibrations hidden within it, and it wouldn't be signed. Feline culture values anonymity of creation. The artist disappears behind the art. 4. Celebration and bonding. In place of festivals or holidays, cats would mark time through seasonal stillings, communal rituals where clans come together to align their rhythms. For example, in the cold season, cats might gather at heat wells and sleep in perfect spirals, exchanging warmth for days. During prey-rich months, clans may engage in mock hunts, non-lethal pursuit rituals to renew instinct without harm. On rare celestial alignments, they may perform the silent circle, a worldwide agreement where no feline moves or speaks for a full day. Bonding happens through mutual grooming, a deeply spiritual act, done only with complete trust. Tail linking. Cats will sometimes rest with tails entwined, a symbolic merging of attention. Shared dreams. If two cats sleep beside each other and awaken simultaneously, it is believed they visited the same dream path. 5. Life, death, and memory. Death, in feline belief, is not an ending, it is a rebalancing. The dream body returns to the breath. The living cat is gone, but their presence echoes in the warmth and scents they leave behind. There would be no graves, no funerals. Instead, the body of the departed would be carried into the forest of echoes, a natural sanctuary designed for decomposition and rebirth. Every tree in these forests is sacred, each infused with scent tokens from ancestors past. Clans do not speak names of the dead. They recall them through scent, posture, and stillness, pausing in their favorite resting spot, repeating their favorite nap position, or brushing against a tree they once touched. Grief is honored through calm. 6. Final thoughts. The culture of contentment. Where human culture values growth, speed, conflict, and innovation, feline culture would emphasize balance over ambition, peace over productivity, stillness over stimulation. Their world would not build for expansion. It would build for presence. And perhaps that's the greatest legacy of a cat-ruled Earth, a civilization that never tried to conquer time. It simply flowed with it. The Earth would not be loud, fast, or filled with slogans. It would be warm, slow, scented, and utterly at peace.